This is why I don't think wrestling is 90% mental. Could even say it's 90% technical. If you're trying to run 10 miles and you're not in shape, maybe you just dabble around and running a little bit here and there. You're going to be nervous, you're going to be scared, you're going to have self-doubt, and then when you do run, you will complete the 10 miles, but it's going to be grueling, it's going to be physical torture, and you're going to have to push yourself. Completing that run for that unskilled, untrained runner is 90% mental. If wrestling for you is 90% mental, all the time, every time, well, guess what? Maybe you lack skills. If you take a runner who says, I can run 10 miles, it's not a big deal, right? And I'll keep a 6-minute pace or faster while I do it. Well, now, is that run for that runner 90% mental? No. It doesn't mean there's no mental toughness involved. They're going to have to push themselves, especially if they're trying to get a PR, right? You always have to push yourself. But just to make a blank statement that says wrestling is 90% mental, I think is not correct. And if you really look at it, when you become very skilled at wrestling, we like to focus on the best. Wrestling has 6,000 wrestling techniques, I heard somewhere. Maybe less, maybe more, who knows. Wait, a lot. So we like to boil it down to for beginners, experienced, elite, and super advanced. We boil it down to the best 275 wrestling techniques, plus or minus a few. And of those 275, there are 75 that you can pretty much build yourself into a national caliber wrestler who you can go into any wrestling room in America and within 2 years or 10 pounds of your weight class, you can go toe-to-toe with anybody in America, right? You boil that, if you master the core, the best 75 wrestling techniques, plus or minus a few, you're going to find that your wrestling, it takes a big jump because of the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your success comes from 20% of the wrestling, you could say, right? That's a kind of a law, I guess. It's in anything. Most of your strength and power is developed from a handful of lifts. Not that the other lifts aren't important, but you should pay close attention to, and you should double and triple down on the core lifts. That's the reason it doesn't matter if you're a gymnast, a basketball player, male, female, a wrestler, even a power lifter, a basketball player, a soccer player. If you go into the weight room, there's a few core lifts, a handful, that all of those athletes in various different sports are training in, because those are the core lifts to become strong becoming a strong human, right? Wrestling's much the same way. So, is wrestling 90% mental? If it's 90% mental for you, 90% mental is a lot. If that's true, then maybe you could take our approach and say, I want to become very, very skilled. Because, we have a little phrase that says, the better I get at wrestling, the easier it gets. The better I get, the more wins I have. You go, that's a stupid phrase. That's just very common sense. Well, yes, we're trying to make everything simple. Simplify your thoughts. The stronger I get, the easier that weight is to pick up. Okay, so I need to get strong. The better I get at wrestling, the more matches I win, and the easier it is to win state titles. Okay, so you better get better at wrestling. Now, how do I do that? To say wrestling's 90% mental would also indicate this. Every time you lose, you wimped out. You didn't have enough heart. You didn't want it bad enough. You simply did not try. You simply are not a good human. You are, in fact, subhuman. You should be embarrassed by yourself. Your coaches and family are embarrassed by you, because wrestling's 90% mental, and you lost more than 10% of your matches. That means you are a weak human, and you should be ashamed of yourself. That's what we're telling our kids when we say wrestling's 90% mental. I would say this: if you take an athlete who's wrestled 6 years, who maybe is a college wrestler, or maybe, 22-year-old man, and say, if you just want it bad enough, then you can beat Jordan Burroughs, because wrestling's 90% mental. You say, well, what about that other 10%? Okay, then have a 2-point match with him. No, it's not going to happen. How come weightlifting's not 90% mental? You can't bench press 300 pounds, therefore you are subhuman, and you are a loser, and you are a wimp, and you are a quitter, and you didn't want it bad enough, and you don't have a heart. How come gymnastics isn't 90% mental? If you can't do a double backflip on a balance beam, then you are a weak human, and you should be embarrassed, and your parents are ashamed of you because you didn't want it bad enough. No, gymnastics isn't 90% mental. Olympic diving isn't 90% mental. Throwing a fastball isn't 90% mental. Hitting 85% of your 3-point jump shots is not 90% mental. Doing double backflips on the balance beam isn't 90% mental. MMA isn't 90% mental. Jiu-jitsu is not 90% mental. Only wrestling is 90% mental. It's the only sport. Everything else requires skill, not wrestling. You just have to want it bad enough. That's bullcrap. That is a flawed coaching tactic, in my opinion. It's a flawed way of thinking, and as an athlete, you should not adopt that. That doesn't mean some matches you can't gut check your way through. If I can have a 1-point match with Jordan Burroughs and I gut check, even though he's a little better than me, and I gut check, I gut out a strong, tough match, and I end up pulling out a big win, sure. Some matches do come down to who wants it more, right? But you can't say the entire sport of wrestling, every single match, every single time, day after day, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, is 90% mental. To me, that is silly. So there's my spin. This is the Instagram video, but we have 650 something videos on YouTube. If you're interested, tons of advice, technique videos, all sorts of things. Just go to YouTube and click perlawrestling.com, or just type Perla Wrestling. They all pop up. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell so that you can be notified when there's new videos popping up. Binge watch through the playlist. There's a lot of great content in there. How to make weight easily, how to get a college wrestling scholarship, how to have more confidence, how to quit choking in big matches. I mean, there's tons of things there. So check us out. Good luck. You can check us out online, perlawrestling.com.